Write It Down, Make It Happen, by Henriette Anne Klauser. Introduction. Imagine a young man, not yet famous, standing on a hill overlooking Hollywood. He's a comedian, full of talent, but the world hasn't quite caught on yet. He has dreams bigger than the city sprawling before him, but his bank account tells a very different story. So he does something strange. He pulls out a checkbook, not to pay a bill, but to write a check to himself. He makes it out for $10 million. And on the memo line, he writes 3 simple words: for services rendered. That young man was Jim Carrey. For years, he carried that tattered check in his wallet. It was a private promise, a tangible piece of a future that only he could see. And as we all know, that future arrived. He became one of the highest paid actors in the world, earning not just $10, but $20 million for a single film. In a final, touching gesture, when his father passed away, Jim tucked that visionary check into his dad's pocket before he was buried. A dream fulfilled, and a promise kept. What if I told you that the simple act of writing that check wasn't just a quirky habit? What if it was the key that unlocked everything? Today, we're going to explore a book that is built on this very idea. It's called Write It Down, Make It Happen by Henriette Anne Klauser. This isn't just another self-help book. It's a timeless guide to a principle so simple, yet so powerful, that it feels like magic. It suggests that your dreams, your wildest ambitions, are not just fantasies. They are destinations. And the map to get there is written with your own hand. By the end of our time together, you'll understand the science and the soul behind this process. You'll learn why a simple pen and paper can be the most powerful tools you own for changing your life. You will discover how to turn vague wishes into concrete realities, and how to program your own mind to see the opportunities that are hiding in plain sight, waiting for you to claim them. So, get comfortable. We're about to uncover the secret to knowing what you want, and getting it. Book summary. Let's start with a fundamental question. Does this really work? Or is it just a nice idea, a bit of wishful thinking? The author, Henriette Klauser, shares story after story of people who prove it's very, very real. Take Scott Adams, the creator of the comic strip Dilbert. Long before he was a household name, he was just another tech worker in a cramped cubicle. But he had a dream. So, he started a strange ritual. 15 times every single day, he would write the same sentence: I will become a syndicated cartoonist. Rejection after rejection came his way, but he kept writing that sentence. He was programming his intention. Eventually, he signed a contract. His comic strip was syndicated. But he didn't stop there. He raised the bar. His new daily sentence became, I will be the best cartoonist on the planet. Today, with Dilbert in thousands of newspapers and a multi-million-dollar empire built around it, it's hard to argue with his results. Then there's the financial guru Susie Orman. When she first started at Merrill Lynch, she was terrified. Her previous job was as a waitress, making $400 a month. Now, she was expected to produce huge sales numbers. So, every morning before work, she wrote, over and over again, I am young, powerful, and successful, producing at least $10,000 a month. She didn't just meet that goal, she shattered it. That piece of paper became her lucky charm, a written truth that replaced her inner fear with a message of endless possibility. So what's going on here? Is it magic? A cosmic force? Well, in a way, yes. But it's a magic that has its roots in the very wiring of your brain. Deep in your brainstem, there's a small, filter-like bundle of nerves called the reticular activating system, or the RAS for short. Think of the RAS as the gatekeeper for your mind. It's constantly sorting through the billions of bits of information your senses are picking up every second, and it decides what's important enough to bring to your conscious attention. Have you ever been in a loud, crowded room, talking to one person, when someone all the way across the room says your name? Suddenly, that one word cuts through all the noise. Your ears perk up. You can't help but turn your head. That's your RAS at work. It's been monitoring everything, and it knows your name is a high priority signal. Writing down your goals is like giving your RAS a new set of instructions. It's like telling the gatekeeper, hey, from now on, anything related to this goal is high priority. Wake me up when you see it. The author uses a perfect analogy. Have you ever bought a new car? Say, a blue Honda? All of a sudden, you start seeing blue Hondas everywhere. You think, wow, where did all these come from? They were always there. Your brain just wasn't programmed to notice them. Buying the car set up a new filter. Writing down a goal does the exact same thing. When you write, I want to start my own business, your RAS gets the message. Suddenly, you'll start noticing articles about entrepreneurship. You'll overhear a conversation about a small business loan program. You'll meet someone who knows exactly who you need to talk to. These opportunities were always there, floating around you. But now, your brain is actively looking for them. Writing it down, as the author puts it, is like hanging a sign on your door that says, "Open for business." The universe, and your own brain, gets the message and starts sending you customers. But this leads to a common problem. What if you don't know what you want? What if your sign is blank? This is where the true power of writing comes in. It's not just for declaring goals, it's for discovering them. The book tells the incredible story of a man named Mark Aceto. When Mark was a young man, he was lost. He'd had a bad experience in theater school and was working as an usher on Broadway. He felt like he was living in the background of his own life, watching others perform on stage. He decided to write a play about his experience. His play, Rear Mezzanine, was about two ushers, a young woman who dreams of being an opera singer but is too afraid to try, and an older, bitter woman who once had the same dream but gave up. As the play develops, you realize they are two halves of the same person, the potential and the regret. Here's the amazing part. When Mark wrote the play, he knew almost nothing about opera. He just picked it because he needed a dramatic dream for his character. He hadn't even listened to a full opera. His play won a college competition and was produced on stage. As Mark sat in the audience, watching the actors speak the words he had written, he had a stunning revelation. He heard his character talk about her fear of pursuing her dream of singing opera, and it was like listening to a hidden part of his own soul. The play was asking him a question: are you going to stay in the rear mezzanine of your own life, or are you going to get on the stage? In that moment, he realized he wanted to be an opera singer. The dream he had invented for his character was actually his own. Writing the play was like sending a message into his own subconscious, and the answer came back to him through his own words. He had the answer before he even knew the question. 3 months after his play was produced, Mark sang his first solo line in an opera. It was only 3 words, but it was a start. Before long, he was offered his first major role. And in a beautiful twist of fate, the opera was Tosca, the very one he had used as a motif in his play. As he stood backstage, listening to an aria he had written about, he realized the incredible journey his own pen had taken him on. Mark's story teaches us a profound lesson. If you don't know what you want, just start writing. Write about your frustrations, your daydreams, your curiosities. Your subconscious knows what you want, and writing is the language it speaks. Let your pen lead you. It will point you toward the path you were meant to follow. Once you have that clarity, once you know the destination, the journey can begin. But right on cue, another obstacle appears. Fear. The what-ifs come crashing in. What if I fail? What if people laugh at me? What if I succeed and my life changes in ways I can't handle? The book introduces us to a woman named Janine, who faced this exact challenge. Janine had taken a whirlwind tour of Europe, 9 countries in 18 days, and it left her with a deep desire to go back, to truly immerse herself in another culture for a year. But the obstacles seemed enormous. She had a mortgage, a good teaching job she couldn't afford to lose, and no savings. It felt irresponsible, even impossible. On New Year's Day, at 2 in the morning, she opened a new journal and wrote down a list of resolutions. Tucked in the middle was her biggest, scariest ambition: to make and follow through definitely on plans to live and travel internationally. She knew that just writing it once wasn't enough. She had to keep the dream alive. So every time she opened her journal, her eyes would fall on that sentence. It became her beacon. Her journal entries from that year show a constant battle between her dream and her fear. One day she'd write about her depression and anxiety. I feel like a large human pinball, sprunging off one wall after another. The next, she'd be making a small, practical step, like calling a college to see if they accepted overseas credits, just in case. Her journal became a place to park her worries. This is such a crucial idea. By writing down her fears, she gave them a home on the page instead of letting them run wild in her mind. This allowed her ambition and her anxiety to coexist. Writing didn't magically erase her fear, but it turned her fears from roadblocks into speed bumps. They could slow her down, but they couldn't stop her. She kept taking tiny steps, even when she was terrified. She bought a new camera for her trip, even though she didn't have a ticket. She enrolled in a French class. She filed an application for a leave of absence from her job, fully expecting to be turned down or even fired. And then, something incredible happened. The personnel director from her school district called. Janine's heart sank. This was it. But the director didn't fire her. He told her that since she planned to study a language, she didn't just qualify for a leave of absence, she qualified for a sabbatical. A paid sabbatical. Suddenly, her biggest obstacle, money, was gone. The district would pay her half her salary for a full year to travel and study. Even better, the deal required her to come back and teach for 2 years, guaranteeing her a job she thought she was about to lose. The world had conspired to meet her commitment. Janine's story teaches us that you don't have to wait until you're fearless to act. You just have to act despite the fear. And writing is the tool that allows you to do that. It separates the dream from the doubt. It lets you hold on to the vision even when your feelings are telling you to give up. But what if your fear isn't just a vague anxiety? What if you're completely stuck? You know what you want. You've written it down, but you feel paralyzed, angry, or overwhelmed. This is when you need a technique the author calls writing through to resolution. Think of it like this. Imagine you're running, and you're getting tired. You see a car parked a few blocks ahead and you tell yourself, just make it to that Volkswagen. But as you get close, before you can stop, you look up and see a hill. Forget the car, you tell yourself, own that hill. You push past your limit, and then you do it again and again. You run farther than you ever thought possible. Writing through to resolution is the mental version of this. When you feel stuck, you pick up a pen and you just start writing. You write about how angry you are, how frustrated, how hopeless you feel. You don't censor yourself. You just write, fast and furious, filling page after page. At first, it's just complaining. But if you keep going, something magical happens. Once you've exhausted all your complaints, your brain, out of sheer boredom, starts looking for solutions. The writing inevitably shifts from problems to possibilities. The book tells the story of Nan, a woman who worked for a brokerage firm. When her boss left, her job was thrown into question, and her company asked her to write a detailed description of her own role and justify her salary. She was furious. "Aren't they supposed to tell me what I do?" she thought. The task felt insurmountable. So she sat down and started writing. For 3 hours, she wrote and cried. The first pages were full of venom. "I hate this. I hate this. I don't want to do this." She wrote about her anger, and then, as she kept going, the feeling beneath the anger started to emerge: fear. Fear of being diminished, of being seen as worthless. She wrote down all her fears. "I'm afraid I'll fail. I'm afraid I'll look foolish." But once she had spelled out her worst fears on the page, she started to calm down. Her pen kept moving, and her writing shifted. She started listing her strengths, the contributions she made to the company. Before she knew it, she was brainstorming a new compensation plan. That raw, angry, fearful writing session turned directly into a professional proposal. She submitted it to her superiors. They not only matched her previous salary, they gave her a bonus. By writing through her resistance, she didn't just get a solution, she found a new appreciation for her own self-worth. When you're at an impasse, don't stop. Pick up a pen and own the next page, and the next. The answer you're looking for is often just past the point where you feel like giving up. Now, sometimes the problem isn't being stuck, it's being overwhelmed. The dream is so big, it's hard to know where to start. In these moments, you don't need pages of emotional exploration. You need clarity. And the simplest way to get clarity is with a list. Sydney was a writer going through a horrific year. Her publisher went bankrupt, owing her thousands of dollars in royalties. Then, within weeks, both her mother and grandmother passed away. To top it all off, her living situation fell apart and she had to find a new place to live. In the midst of all this chaos, she knew she needed a sanctuary. So she took out a yellow legal pad and made a simple list of the 5 non-negotiable things she needed in a new home. 1. 2 bedrooms. 2. 2 bathrooms. 3. A garage with an automatic opener. 4. A view of the water. 5. And finally, a place that was quiet, beautiful, and pristine. She kept that list in front of her. It was her anchor in the storm. Soon after, she received an inheritance from her mother's estate, giving her the money to move. She checked the classifieds and found 4 promising ads. 3 didn't quite fit. The 4th ad was short and simple: 2 BDRM, 2 BTHS, garage, PRTL view of Puget Sound. Before she went to see it, she said a quick prayer: "God, let something in my life be easy." She walked in the door, saw the vaulted ceilings, the off-white carpet, and the view of the water, and she knew. This was it. She got everything on her list, and more. The street she moved to was actually called Paradise Lane. Sydney says that writing the list was crucial because it got the desires out of the dark swamp of her head and onto paper, where they became real and clear. When you are vague and general, nothing can happen. A specific list is a specific request. And specific requests get specific answers. This brings us to another powerful technique: focusing on the outcome. It's not enough to just list what you want. You have to vividly imagine what it will be like to have it. And more than that, you need to understand the why behind your what. The author calls this the outcome of the outcome. She shares a personal story. The Seattle Opera was looking for non-singing extras for a production of Turandot. As a huge opera fan, she desperately wanted a part. She went to get measured for a costume, but they told her she was too tall. Devastated but determined, she went home and started writing about being in the opera, in the present tense, as if it had already happened. "It is so wonderful to be in Turandot," she wrote. I am blissful to be surrounded by music that I love. But then she dug deeper. Why did she want this part so badly? The outcome was being in the opera. The outcome of the outcome was what that experience would give her. She realized it would feed her creativity for the book she was writing. Being immersed in that world of music and production would enrich her own work. This particular opera was also special. She had seen it in New York when her first book was launched. Getting this part became a symbol of what was possible for her next book. She wrote about this deeper meaning, this why. 2 days later, she got a call. The person they had cast couldn't do it. They needed her to jump in. When your goal is not just a what but a why, it becomes infused with a much deeper power. Don't just write about the car you want. Write about the freedom it will give you, the family trips you'll take. That's the real fuel for your journey. Of course, a journey is much easier when you have companions. And this is where the idea of a support group comes in. 1. What will you do next? 2. By when will you do it? The third ingredient was return and report. They were accountable to each other. This simple process broke down huge goals into manageable, weekly steps. Janine wanted to do a 200-mile bike ride. Overwhelmed, they broke it down. Bike 10 miles, 5 times, by next week. Small bites. Week after week, step by step, they cheered each other on. An accountability partner isn't there to judge you. They are there to be your champion, to remind you of your own vision, and to celebrate the small victories that eventually lead to the big ones. Now, as you start this journey, you'll find that sometimes, the biggest obstacle isn't fear or confusion. It's an old story you're telling yourself, a limiting belief you don't even know is there. The author calls this resistance, and she says that resistance always has meaning. Trina was a young woman with a passion for economics and a dream of helping developing nations. She read an article about an organization called Global Partnerships that did exactly what she wanted to do. It provided small loans to women in third world countries to start businesses. It was her dream job, realized. She wrote down the organization's name and phone number on a post-it note and stuck it in her daily planner. It was the perfect fit. Everything she had ever wanted. And for weeks, she did nothing. Every day, she looked at that yellow square, and she never made the call. She was busy, yes, but she knew that wasn't the real reason. The truth was, she was scared. It is hard to do because it is exactly what I want, she admitted. What if she called and they rejected her? What if the dream broke when she tried to touch it? At the author's prompting, she started writing about her resistance. And the real reason came pouring out. It wasn't just fear of rejection. It was the memory of a conversation she'd had with a friend's brother in Ireland. When she told him about her dream, he had spent 3 hours berating her, telling her she was an arrogant American who had no right to interfere in other cultures. His harsh words had planted a seed of doubt in her mind. Who do you think you are? She had internalized his criticism, and it was paralyzing her. By writing it out, she finally saw the meaning behind her resistance. She was carrying a burden she didn't even know was there. And once she identified it, the block disintegrated. Less than a week later, she was at a cocktail party. She struck up a conversation with a woman who had just gotten a new job. Her new job? She was the executive director of Global Partnerships. Once you uncover the meaning behind your resistance, you set yourself free. And you free the world to help you. This leads to one of the most profound ideas in the book, the importance of letting go. We've talked a lot about what you want to bring into your life. But what are you willing to let go of to make room for it? The author shares a powerful ritual from her friend, the writer Elaine Street. James. It's an adaptation of a Native American ceremony. On New Year's, they would craft 6 symbolic arrows. 3 were death arrows, representing things they wanted to eliminate from their lives: bad habits, negative thoughts, unhealthy relationships. The other 3 were life arrows, representing what they wanted to bring in. They would go to low ground, create a circle, and one by one, state what they were willing to let go of and bury the death arrows. Then, they would go to higher ground, create another circle, and plant the life arrows, making their requests for the year ahead. This ritual highlights a universal truth: you have to empty the cup before you can fill it. Think about your closet. If it's stuffed with clothes you never wear, there's no room for anything new. The author suggests a simple exercise: go through your closet and throw out or donate anything you haven't worn in a year. Create space. Magically, you'll find that new clothes you love will start to appear to fill that space. It's the same with our lives. What old beliefs, old worries, or old resentments are you holding on to? These things take up psychic space. Writing them down on a death arrow, a symbolic piece of paper, and then ceremonially getting rid of it, burning it, burying it, or even flushing it is a powerful act of release. It's a declaration that you are making room for the new. Sometimes, the thing you need to let go of is your very attachment to the goal itself. Gloria, the woman from an earlier story who wrote letters to her future husband for 2 years, finally met him only after she came to a place of peace, after she realized she could be a whole and happy person even if she never married. She had to be willing to not get what she most dreamed of. In that act of surrender, she created the space for him to appear. Finally, what happens when you do all of this? You write it down, you face your fears, you let go, and it still doesn't happen? What do you do when you face a breakdown? First, the author says, you need to ask yourself, did it really not happen, or did it just not happen the way you thought it would? Go back to the outcome of the outcome. A friend of the author's wanted desperately to get into medical school. She wrote it down, she worked for it, and she was rejected. Was that a failure? Well, she wanted to go to medical school so she could become a doctor. She wanted to be a doctor so she could help sick people. Today, she works as a physician's assistant in a hospital, helping people with AIDS. She got the outcome of the outcome, just through a different door. There is no failure, only feedback. Or as one person in the book puts it, there is no failure, only a delay in results. Napoleon Hill, in his classic book Think and Grow Rich, tells the story of a man named Darby who bought a gold mine. He struck gold, but then the vein disappeared. He drilled and dug, but found nothing. So he gave up and sold his equipment for a few $100s. The man who bought it brought in an engineer, who determined that the gold vein was still there. It had just shifted. The new owner started digging just 3 feet from where Darby had stopped, and he hit a gold vein worth millions. Darby said that experience taught him the most important lesson of his life: to keep on keeping on, because you might be quitting just 3 feet from the gold. So when things fall apart, when the computer crashes, when the deal falls through, don't despair. The author suggests a radical idea: celebrate. Breakdown is often a sign that you are on the verge of a breakthrough. It's called transition. It's the chaotic, painful moment right before a new birth. When everything seems to be going wrong, it might just mean you are very, very close to getting it right. So push on. Keep writing. Keep believing. You might be just 1 page, 1 step, 1 decision away from everything you've ever wanted. Commentary. As we wrap up our journey through Write It Down, Make It Happen, I find myself thinking about how profoundly simple, yet revolutionary, this idea is. In a world filled with complex productivity systems, digital apps, and life hacks, Henriette Klauser brings us back to the most fundamental tools we have: a thought, and a way to make it tangible. What I find most powerful about this book is that it's not just about goal setting. It's about self-discovery. It's about having a conversation with the deepest parts of yourself, the parts that know what you truly want, even when your conscious mind is filled with noise and doubt. Writing is the bridge to that inner wisdom. The stories in this book, of Jim Carrey, Mark Aceto, Janine, and so many others, remind us that our lives are not something that just happens to us. They are narratives that we have a hand in writing. Every day, with every thought and every action, we are contributing a new sentence, a new paragraph, to our own story. The question this book asks is, are you writing the story you truly want to live? If there's one core message to take away, it's this: clarity is power. The act of writing forces you to be clear. You can't just vaguely wish for happiness or success. You have to define what that looks like, what it feels like. And in that act of defining it, you begin to create it. You activate that gatekeeper in your brain, the reticular activating system, and you turn your mind into a powerful ally that actively seeks out the path to your goals. So, how can you start applying this today? Here are a few simple actions you can take. First, create your impossible list. Just for fun. Take 10 minutes tonight, grab a piece of paper, and write down 10 goals you want to achieve before you die. Don't censor yourself. If you want to have dinner at the White House like Lou Holtz, write it down. If you want to compose an opera, write it down. Give yourself permission to dream without limits. This isn't a contract, it's an exploration. Second, start a worry journal. The next time you feel anxious or stuck on a goal, don't let those fears circle endlessly in your head. Give them a home. Open a notebook and write down every single thing you're afraid of. As Janine discovered, putting your worries on the page doesn't empower them, it contains them. It allows you to see them for what they are, just thoughts, and it frees you up to take action despite them. And third, find one accountability partner. It doesn't have to be a formal group. Just one friend. Share one small goal with them, and ask them the two magic questions. What will you do next? And by when will you do it? Then, ask them to do the same for you. The simple act of saying your goal out loud to another person, and promising to report back, can create incredible momentum. That was a summary of Write It Down, Make It Happen by Henriette Anne Klauser. We've explored the core ideas today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only ever be a signpost. The real journey happens when you walk the path yourself. The true magic is in the quiet moments, when a particular story or a simple phrase from the book connects with you in a way you didn't expect. This podcast is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time and attention. If anything we've talked about today has sparked something inside you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning, it's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see the power of your own words. Also, if you found this summary valuable, I'd be so grateful if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep growing together.